Life after divorce can open new horizons, and that's exactly how Chanin Starbuck felt. At 42, she didn't just recover from her marriage breakdown, she felt attractive and confident. Who could have predicted that this new confidence would lead to betrayal by someone she trusted unconditionally? An ordinary Thursday, December 1, 2011, began like any other day. After classes ended at 2:45 p.m., 15-year-old Logan Starbuck texted her mother, asking who would pick up her and the other children from school. 20 minutes later, Chanin replied that due to a headache, she couldn't come, so their father would pick up the children. She asked her daughter to reassure 10-year-old Marshall, whom the family affectionately called Marsh, that Dad was already on his way. Time passed, but neither parent showed up. After several unsuccessful attempts to contact her mother, Logan reached out to her oldest brother, 21-year-old Austin, who worked at a local window manufacturing company. Since none of the younger children had house keys, Austin left work and drove them to their father's house in Chattaroy, which was about a kilometer away from their mother's home. After the Starbucks divorce, the family split up. The older sons, Austin, 21 years old, and Blake, 18 years old, a high school graduate, stayed with their father, while the younger children, Logan, Serena, and Marshall, lived with their mother. However, the divorce didn't destroy family bonds. The children freely communicated with both parents, regularly visiting both their mother and father. Clay Starbuck, despite the divorce, remained a caring father. Living near the school, he would pick up the children every morning and drive them to classes. Usually, he would warm up the car by driving around the block several times so the children wouldn't be cold in the car during winter. But that morning, his car unexpectedly stalled on a deserted street between their houses, and he asked Chanin to take the children to school. When Austin brought his younger siblings to their father after school, Clay was surprised as this hadn't been arranged. Checking his phone, he discovered it had died and was unavailable. Chanin's absence after school didn't initially cause much concern. He expected to see her at the school basketball game that evening. After a light dinner, the family headed to the game. Clay sent Chanin a message about their plans and suggested meeting after the match. But she didn't show up and didn't respond to either the children or her ex-husband, which was highly unusual for her. After the game, a worried Clay drove the children to Chanin's house. The house greeted them with silence and locked doors. Unable to get inside, Clay decided the children would spend the night at his place. Since they usually lived with their mother, there wasn't even the basics at their father's house: clean clothes and underwear for school. The children convinced their father to let them skip Friday classes. The next day, December 2, 2011, anxiety increased. There was still no word from Chanin. Clay sent her a final message, warning that if she didn't respond by 7 in the evening, he would contact the police. At the same time, Chanin's mother, Mela, who lived in Florida, was also unsuccessfully trying to contact her daughter. Maternal instinct told her something terrible had happened. Unable to bear the anxiety, she contacted law enforcement requesting them to check her daughter's house. At 6:15 p.m., 2 sheriff's deputies arrived at Chanin's house in Deer Park, Washington. They found locked doors, turned off lights, and a courier package on the porch delivered earlier that day. Despite knocking and loud calls, no one responded. After walking around the house and looking through the windows, the officers noticed nothing suspicious or unusual. The patrol officers waited another 10 minutes outside Chanin's house before leaving the scene. Around 7 in the evening, still having received no response from his ex-wife, Clay also called the police requesting them to check her house. Ironically, his call coincided with the time when officers had just left the Starbuck residence, having noticed nothing suspicious. They immediately headed to Clay's residence to learn more details. The worried man showed them a series of undelivered messages on his phone, confessing he had no idea of Chanin's whereabouts. To better understand the situation, it's worth returning to the origins of this woman's story. Chanin Denise Conway was born on April 19, 1969, in Anderson, Indiana. Her childhood was spent in the company of 2 brothers, and after her parents' divorce and their remarriage, the family grew with step-siblings. It was then that young Chanin's maternal instinct awakened. She enjoyed caring for younger children, seeing it as her calling. The girl had remarkable artistic talent, winning numerous awards for her work. Her personality was shaped by a childhood spent with family and friends near Disneyland and on the Florida coast. Deep religiosity accompanied Chanin throughout her life, making her an active participant in the church community. At the same time, she remained an extremely modest and romantic nature, avoiding excessive attention to herself. The fateful meeting occurred in 1989 when 20-year-old Chanin met 24-year-old Clay Starbuck, who was vacationing in South Florida. Clay, born on September 1, 1964, in Alaska, had a diesel mechanic education from Colorado and experience working on the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. When he met Chanin, he was already divorced and had 2 children from a previous 5-year marriage. After a whirlwind romance, the couple married and moved to Alaska, which became a serious test for the girl from sunny Florida. Chanin had to adapt not only to the harsh climate but also to independence due to her husband's frequent business trips. However, her love helped overcome all difficulties and become a wonderful wife and stepmother. Soon the couple began having their own children. First Austin was born, then Blake, and in 1996, daughter Logan. When Logan was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, Chanin accepted it with understanding, dedicating herself to her daughter's development in social adaptation. Later, the family grew with daughter Serena. Chanin completely devoted herself to the family, supporting the children in all their endeavors, from sports competitions to school and church events. Her talents manifested in other areas as well. She was famous for her culinary art and quilting skills, with her quilts selling at local fairs for significant sums. Her ability to alter wedding and prom dresses was widely known in the community. She also embroidered logos on baseball caps for her son's team and created Christmas decorations for the church. Immersed in community life and church activities, Chanin didn't notice how her husband began seeking solace elsewhere. Frequent trips to the pipeline created favorable conditions for an extramarital affair. An additional tension factor was the difference in attitudes toward faith. While Chanin remained a devoted parishioner, Clay showed indifference to religion. Please subscribe to my channel, and I will bring you more videos featuring the most shocking true crime stories. In March 2000, the couple divorced. 30-year-old Chanin moved to Arizona and tried to build new relationships, but her feelings for Clay didn't fade. After several months, she suggested they try again, and he agreed. In 2001, their son Marshall was born, although Clay had doubts about his paternity. Despite this, he treated the boy with the same love as the other children, never showing his suspicions. In December 2006, determined to preserve the family, the Starbucks entered into a new marriage. A year and a half after their second marriage, the Starbuck family moved to Deer Park, Washington. For 39-year-old Chanin, this town in Spokane County became a true discovery after visiting an old school friend. She immediately saw it as the perfect place for raising children, dreaming of a warm and supportive environment for her sons and daughters. The family settled in a spacious rental house with 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. Life seemed cloudless. They spent a lot of time together, had barbecues, visited theme parks, and celebrated family holidays. However, Clay's pipeline work, which required week-long business trips, began affecting their relationship again. Chanin tried to fill this void by focusing on the children and their needs, but the long separations eventually led to another break. In June 2010, the couple decided to divorce again. In July, having just turned 40, Chanin filed for divorce. Despite the difficulty of a new beginning at this age, she was determined to find her happiness. Entries in her diary showed a sincere desire to start over. Chanin actively practiced yoga, went to the gym, and began paying more attention to her appearance. Friends noted that she seemed to have grown younger and blossomed. In the last months of her life, Chanin registered on several dating sites. She honestly indicated her status as a divorced mother of 5 children and was looking for a serious relationship. The main cause of their problems: constant business trips, disappeared just when the marriage finally broke down. Life's irony manifested in the fact that it was then that Clay suffered a serious back injury in Alaska, forcing him to stop working. This happened while working on the pipeline when he was lifting heavy equipment. The injury was so serious that he received disability insurance. In February 2011, Clay, while on medical leave, returned to Deer Park, settling about a kilometer away from his ex-wife to be closer to the children. Despite his confessions of undying love, Chanin was convinced of their incompatibility and wanted to enjoy her newfound freedom. However, she didn't object to Clay living nearby and helping with the children. Melanie, Chanin's mother, was proud of how her daughter handled life changes, finding her own identity. After the surgery, Clay received disability status, and the older sons, Austin and Blake, moved in with him, while Chanin got custody of the younger children, 15-year-old Logan, 12-year-old Serena, and 10-year-old Marshall. Clay was to pay about $5,000 in monthly child support. Having tasted independence, Chanin sought professional self-realization. Understanding that Clay might have difficulties paying child support due to his disability, she decided to pursue education. Enrolling in dental assistant courses at Spokane Community College, she successfully completed her studies in summer 2011, despite financial difficulties. Support from friends and the church community helped her get through this period. During this time, Chanin spoke daily on the phone with her mother, sharing her experiences and plans for the future. At 42, having gained a profession, she felt ready for new romantic relationships. After years of living for others, Chanin decided to care for her own happiness and registered on a dating site. Such was her life until the fatal December 1, 2011, when she suddenly stopped communicating. 40 hours after her disappearance, on December 3, her mother again contacted the police, insisting on checking the house. Perhaps Chanin needed urgent medical attention. With the landlord's help, detectives gained access to the residence. Inside, silence reigned. In the living room lay Chanin's closed laptop, her car was in the garage. Nothing indicated a struggle or break-in, all items remained in their places. In the master bedroom, they found her mobile phone on the bedside table and her diary on the dresser. The only unusual detail was the unmade bed, the blanket was on the floor, and the sheets were missing. Further examination of the bedroom revealed a horrific scene. Blood stains were visible on the mattress cover. But the police didn't notice this immediately because their attention was drawn to something more terrifying. A partially nude woman's body lay on the floor. It was Chanin Starbuck. She was found in an unnatural position, with signs of brutal beating. Her entire body was covered in bruises and abrasions. The way the body was positioned indicated that she had been deliberately moved after death, brazenly displayed in an indecent manner. Investigators thoroughly examined the room where the body was found. The absence of break-in signs suggested that the perpetrator was voluntarily let into the house. Crime scene technicians took over 100 photographs and examined all surfaces for fingerprints. Although some traces had been wiped away, they managed to find 12 hidden prints, on a massager box, bathroom mirror, faucet, notepad, dryer, and the entrance door to the children's bathroom. Several items were sent for examination: bedding, a bathroom sponge, towel, laptop, and Chanin's mobile phone. According to preliminary findings, the woman was attacked right after taking a shower, then moved to the bed. The perpetrator tried to cover their tracks, removed the sheets, loaded them into the washing machine, and attempted to wipe fingerprints from surfaces. Around noon, Clay arrived at the house, still unaware of the tragedy. Seeing the yellow police tape, parked emergency vehicles, and the coroner's van, he realized something irreparable had happened. It was from him that investigators received the first important information about the victim's life. Clay told them about Chanin's activity on dating sites and her meetings with various men, showing his last attempts to contact her. At the Deer Park Sheriff's Department, Clay detailed the history of their relationship and divorce. Most information about recent events in Chanin's life he learned from the children, as he only communicated with his ex-wife through messages. They last saw each other at Marshall's parent-teacher conference 5 or 6 days ago. When Clay was informed of Chanin's death, he fainted, falling to the floor. After recovering from the initial shock, he suggested that the killer could be one of the men she met online, although he couldn't name specific individuals. During questioning, he revealed the true reason for their divorce: Chanin's constant infidelity, even mentioning his doubts about Marshall's paternity, though he had no proof of this. However, further investigation did not confirm Clay's accusations of Chanin's marital infidelity. On the contrary, evidence was found of his own extramarital affairs during his work on the pipeline. Throughout the conversation, Clay couldn't hold back tears, barely managing to speak about his ex-wife in the past tense. News of Chanin's death shocked the entire family. The deputy sheriff personally informed her brother on the other side of the country, who had to relay the information to other relatives. For Chanin's mother, Melanie, who lived in Florida, this news was an unbearable blow. She refused to believe in the reality of what happened, as she talked to her daughter on the phone every day. Just 4 months ago, she had seen Chanin happy during a photo session for the family album. No one could have thought that meeting would be the last. Meanwhile, police conducted neighbor interviews, hoping to find witnesses. However, many weren't home, and those they managed to reach hadn't noticed anything suspicious. The police department asked the public to report any suspicious persons or vehicles noticed near the Starbuck house in the month before the tragedy. One neighbor reported a suspicious gray pickup truck parked near Chanin's house early in the morning on the day of her disappearance. The investigation of Chanin Starbuck's death required extremely thorough and meticulous work from investigators. After conducting an autopsy, experts discovered numerous injuries indicating severe abuse of the victim. The woman's body showed marks from a stun gun in the chest area, 10 broken ribs, and multiple blunt force trauma injuries across the entire body, including the head. Scratches found on the body indicated that the victim had been dragged from place to place, and at some point, someone had even stepped on her. The forensic examination established the approximate time of death, either during the day on December 1st or during the night of December 2nd. The immediate cause of death was strangulation, a broken bone was found in the throat, and the murder weapon was likely a soft object, possibly a towel or a human hand. Male DNA traces were found on the body, which prompted detectives to begin questioning all men from the deceased's close circle. Chanin's ex-husband, Clay Starbuck, showed complete willingness to cooperate with the investigation. He provided his phone for examination, submitted biological samples for DNA analysis, and gave his fingerprints. Investigators also photographed his body looking for possible scratches or other injuries that might indicate a struggle, but found none. The eldest son Austin had cuts on his hands, but these were easily explained by his work at a window manufacturing plant. During conversations with the Starbuck children, it was revealed that they knew about their mother's personal life after the divorce, about her dates with men, and had even seen her revealing photos on the computer. The teenagers, familiar with crime shows, suggested the possible involvement of someone she met online. On December 6th, detectives along with Clay recreated his route on the day of Chanin's death. He detailed his car troubles that morning and showed his correspondence with his ex-wife. According to him, he woke up around 7 in the morning, tried to warm up the car, but it stalled. After this, Clay walked back home to rest, as he suffered from insomnia due to back problems. The man explained that his phone had died, and he only learned about this when Austin brought the younger children home. According to Clay, he woke up around 11 o'clock, tried to start the car again, but unsuccessfully. Then he spent time playing Xbox offline, which made it difficult to verify his alibi. The fingerprint check revealed no matches with those found at the crime scene, and Clay's lack of prior offenses prompted investigators to focus on examining Chanin's electronic devices in search of other suspects. On December 10, 2011, a memorial service was held for Chanin, attended by many friends and loved ones. Her body was then transported to Florida, where she was buried in a cemetery in Orlando. Everyone remembered her as a wonderful mother, dedicated community activist, and simply a good person. Examination of the victim's mobile phone records led investigators to Tom Walker, with whom Chanin had scheduled a date for December 5. They had exchanged intimate messages hours before her death. Phone analysis showed that messages after 9:17 a.m. significantly differed in style from Chanin's usual way of communicating. The killer, attempting to imitate her writing style, made characteristic mistakes. Notably, the deceased's body was left in a pose that corresponded to the content of their correspondence, although Chanin herself had never sent such photographs. Tom Walker worked as a car salesman and had a scheduled meeting with Chanin for December 5. On the day of her death, she unexpectedly suggested meeting for lunch, despite knowing his work schedule. After a series of messages from Tom, Chanin stopped responding. His alibi was confirmed by colleagues and surveillance cameras. The next suspect was a man who introduced himself as John Wilson, supposedly an unmarried doctor from New York. Their acquaintance began in autumn, and neither sought a serious relationship. However, investigation revealed that he was actually John Kenline, a married middle school teacher who used a false name on the dating site. On December 1, Kenline took a day off and arrived at Chanin's house around 10:30. Not finding her at home, he tried to contact her through a payphone, then walked around the house, but to no avail. Later, he sent her a message from the Deer Park Library, to which he received a response at 12:12. Chanin complained of a headache and declined to meet. That day, Kenline tried to contact Chanin several more times and even came to her house late in the evening. All his movements were documented. Although a theory about possible blackmail emerged, it had to be dismissed since Chanin was unaware of his marital status. A breakthrough in the investigation came when they discovered a deleted 911 call made at 9:17 a.m. on December 1. The recording lasted only 30 seconds and contained a brief piercing sound and rustling, after which the connection was lost. When the operator tried to call back, they found the phone was turned off. GPS data confirmed that the call was made from the Starbuck house. This discovery helped establish the exact time of Chanin's death, shortly after she drove the children to school. All messages after 9:30 a.m. were not sent by her, but by the killer who was trying to create the illusion that she was still alive. Special attention was drawn to the use of son Marshall's family nickname, Marsh, indicating the perpetrator's close familiarity with the family. The phone was turned on and off throughout the day, last operating between 12 and 4 p.m. 11 messages were sent from Chanin's phone, the last one at 3:17 p.m. containing a request to Clay to pick up the children due to a headache. It later emerged that the messages to Tom, Kerr, and John Kenline were not written by Chanin. Both men sensed something strange in their content, as the author was clearly unaware of previously arranged meetings. The investigation revealed a significant flaw in the 911 service protocol. According to established procedures, the operator was required to call back twice in case of a disconnection before deciding whether to dispatch a patrol. This policy was aimed at preventing numerous responses to false calls. The tragic case of Chanin led to a revision of these rules, although it was too late for her. Establishing the exact time of death allowed investigators to review the suspect's alibis. It was then that one of Chanin's friends revealed the true nature of her relationship with her ex-husband. It turned out that Clay not only owed a significant amount in child support but also tried to control his ex-wife's life. He had installed spyware on her computer to monitor her activity on dating sites. Chanin lived in constant fear and had contacted the police 4 times over 6 months. After Clay moved to Kirkland, strange things began happening in the house. Someone was unscrewing light bulbs, damaging the car and electricity. Trying to protect herself and the children, Chanin changed the locks and installed surveillance cameras. She suspected her ex-husband and kept the house keys only to herself. Notably, on the day of the murder, the cameras weren't working, likely disabled by the perpetrator in advance. From Chanin's diary, it became known that Clay was turning the children against her by spreading false information. Despite this, she tried to maintain his presence in the children's lives, acknowledging him as a good father. The divorce proved to be far from as peaceful as Clay claimed, as he continued to show excessive interest in his ex-wife's personal life. Particularly disturbing was an incident when Clay told his younger son's teacher that he wouldn't be surprised if one day Chanin was found with her throat cut. Although the evidence against him was circumstantial, he had both motive and opportunity to commit the crime. Security camera footage disproved his story about the broken car, and forensic analysis found his DNA under the victim's fingernails, on her face, and neck. Investigators reconstructed the likely sequence of events on December 1. Clay lured Chanin from home by asking her to drive the younger children, broke into the house, and waited for her return. After an argument and struggle, during which the victim tried to call for help, he strangled his ex-wife and positioned her body in a degrading pose, then used her phone to send messages. Clay was arrested on February 6, 2012. During the search of his house, they found Chanin's ID, the hard drive from her computer, handwritten notes, and correspondence with other men. The children continued to believe in their father's innocence, describing him as caring and kind, while criticizing their mother's behavior. The older sons even questioned the DNA evidence results. In June 2013, after 2 days of deliberation, the jury found Clay Starbuck guilty of first-degree murder and desecration of human remains. The trial lasted almost a month and became one of the most high-profile cases in Spokane County history. Prosecutors Larry Steinmetz and Gavin Dunn presented the jury with an impressive amount of evidence. Particularly important was the testimony of a forensic expert who confirmed that the nature of injuries on Chanin's body corresponded to Clay's strength and physical capabilities. Defense attorney Derek Reed tried to convince the jury that the evidence was circumstantial, and Clay's DNA could have remained on his ex-wife's body from their last interaction at a parent-teacher meeting. A turning point in the trial came with the IT expert's testimony, who detailed the spyware Clay had installed on Chanin's computer. The program not only tracked her internet activity but also recorded all passwords and personal correspondence. This refuted the defense's claims that Clay showed no excessive interest in his ex-wife's personal life. During closing arguments, prosecutor Steinmetz emphasized the consistency of evidence, motive, jealousy and financial problems, opportunity, knowledge of the victim's daily routine and access to the house, an attempt to conceal the crime, sending fake messages. Judge Annette Pleas, while delivering the verdict, noted the particular cruelty of the crime and the defendant's lack of remorse. He received life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The Starbuck family, including the children, continued to consider the verdict unjust, while Chanin's relatives were convinced of his guilt. The tragic consequences of this crime continued to affect the children's lives. The 5 Starbuck children took different life paths after the tragedy. The older sons, Austin and Blake, continued to support their father, regularly visiting him in prison. Austin remained working in window manufacturing, while Blake entered college, choosing a technical field. Both brothers actively made public statements about their father's innocence and even created a support group on social media. Serena, who was a teenager during the tragedy, moved to Florida to live with relatives after finishing school, trying to distance herself from the tragic past. She maintained contact with grandmother Mela, Chanin's mother, who helped her adapt to the new place. The youngest son Marshall, who was only 10 years old when his mother was murdered, was raised under the care of his maternal aunt. Despite his young age, he showed remarkable resilience, performed well in school, and became involved in sports. A tragic fate befell Logan. In December 2021, suffering from depression and the effects of autism, she disappeared from home. Her body was found on February 10, 2022, in the Spokane River. The investigation confirmed it was suicide. Friends reported that in recent years, Logan had been trying to make sense of past events, which significantly affected her mental state. Psychologists who worked with the family noted that the Starbuck children found themselves in an extremely difficult situation of double loss, first their mother through murder, then their father through imprisonment. This created a deep emotional trauma that each of them tried to cope with in their own way. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments what you think about this case. If you enjoy deep dives into true crime, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Until next time, friends.